The system meant to heal our veterans often leaves them waiting in pain, and sometimes it costs lives. But what if the answer to trauma isn't trapped in red tape? It's been with us for thousands of years. Now let's have ourselves a pocket sized pep talk and explore how ancient practices like yoga, martial arts, and meditation are helping veterans move beyond survival and reclaim strength where modern systems, well, they fall short.
A Pocket Sized Pep Talk, the podcast that can help energize your business and your life with a quick, inspiring message. Now, here's your host, Rob Jollis.
Today's guest, Robert Greene, is a U.S. Navy veteran who turned his battle with PTSD and personal loss into a global healing journey, studying with monks, masters, and tribal communities across Asia. He now teaches veterans, leaders, and high performers how to reclaim peace of mind and resilience through breath work, movement, and emotional intelligence. His mission is simple: to share unconventional wisdom that transforms invisible wounds into strength and purpose. Happy to have you with us, and welcome to the show, Rob.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Pleasure. And I want you to know this man is coming to us from Malaysia. We got him up. He's staying up tonight to talk to us. In any case, let's dive in. I want to start with the moment that kind of the turning point where you realized that the life you were living, just wasn't really sustainable anymore.
Yeah, it was probably the rock bottom moments that I had. A lot of us veterans were psychologically conditioned to handle things, handle it. As in American culture, when you're a man admitting that you have a problem and all that, it's highly stigmatized during my time in. So that's what I was doing. And I remember I was falling apart on the inside, but trying to keep it together outside. I was the executive director of an international marketing program working for a Japanese company. I had a, nice house and a car and living that whole life. And I had everything together on the outside, but internally, I was a mess. Like I couldn't be present in my own energy, or I didn't feel safe in my own body. If just to be calm, I would need to be on something. I would need to be drinking or smoking cigarettes, or I constantly had a need for substances because I couldn't just sit still. And so after a long weekend of drinking and binging and kind of doing things that were very unhealthy, I came back home to my ex-fiance, and then she said, "I don't think this is going to work between us. I want out of this. You really need help." And my ego was kind of talking and said, "Okay, I'm fine. And I was just being a jerk. Fine. If you want to leave, go. I don't need you. Screw you, whatever." And then she said, "I want you to sit here and fight for me." I was like, "Oh, you want to play head games? All right, watch this." So I took my hunting knife out and I stuck it in the back of my neck and I started to cut my neck. I had so much and I was in such a twisted state. I just wanted to end it there. Something came over me and it was very, very dark. Luckily, she's a tall British girl, about 5'8", 5'9", almost my height. And she tackled me into the wall in my room before I could finish the job. And she's laying there just devastated in tears. And I'm laying there in a pool of blood. And I'm just like, all right, this is it. That was kind of the darkest, most eye-opening moment that I had in this whole thing that caused me to change my perspective.
Wow. Wow. And yet what I hear, you were told that you had to wait 8 months for help.
Okay. Yeah.
I can only imagine what that felt like in the moment.
Well, I went to the Department of Veterans Affairs and I said, "Hey, I'm a veteran. I've had major substance abuse problems. I've had chronic insomnia since I was in the military. I still have it now. I have chronic anxiety, mood swings. Like I'm falling apart here. I made an attempt to end my life. Like, okay, we'll fill out this paper, and this paper." So I filled it out. They say, "Okay, come back in 2 weeks. You're going to give an eval." So waited 2 weeks, went in for the eval, fill out a bunch of paperwork, ask a bunch of questions. And then I said, "All right, wait for the results of eval. We're going to hold you done." So I was 2 months. I was waiting for the results of the eval. They came back. They said, "Okay, you have a severe case of post-traumatic stress disorder. You have chronic insomnia. You have anxiety, depression, and substance abuse issues." So I'm like, "Well, yeah, obviously. When can I get an appointment?" They're like, "Okay, well, you need to get referred to mental health. So you fill out this paper, and you have to wait 2 months for this guy, then another 2 months for this guy to refer you. So you might get an appointment in 6 to 8 months." And I just kind of looked at them like, are you kidding me? you guys are being funded a small percentage of the American GDP to take care of veterans, and 22 veterans a day are losing their lives to suicide. I tried to take my own life. I need help, and you told me I need to wait 8 months. What am I supposed to do? They said, all right, well, you can apply for this program and fill out this paper. Then you can pay for your own treatment, and then we might reimburse you. So I started to do that. And in doing so, what I found out is the conventional methodology that my psychiatrist, psychologist, person I was talking with using was you just got me on a bunch of pills. Take this for your sleeping, take this SSRI, take this as an anti-anxiety med. And I'm like, hang on a minute, dude. I'm already kind of losing it here with substances and cigarettes and alcohol and doing a bunch of stuff I'm not supposed to be doing. And now you just want to throw pills at me. This is not what I was looking for. And so to answer your question, I was a bit shocked but not surprised because I've worked with the government before and I kind of know how things go when you have high demand and limited resources and people have to wait. That's just kind of how it goes. So I was shocked but not surprised. If that makes any sense.
But you know what? You instead of waiting, you chose I would say a more unconventional path. But
Yeah.
so what was the step at this point you realized to survive you're going to have to handle this yourself. What were the first steps you took?
Okay, well, it's a bit of a long story in between, so I can condense it down to like a Netflix episode, I
Well, it's
guess.
a podcast. We got people walking dogs and listening in the car. Work at a brisk
All right.
pace, but the floor is yours.
Yeah, so after that happened, my relationship obviously fell apart. My ex had moved on, we parted ways. My career went down the tubes because during the whole 2 year process of this happening, I was deeply addicted to substances and I was showing up at work like hungover with no sleep and blown up on clients and I was just mentally unstable. And there was a day one of my coworkers and I got in an argument, and the military guy came out of me, and I put him at attention, and I thoroughly chewed him out and berated him with this colorful, well put together assembly of very derogatory language that made him cry.
Mm.
And while he was crying, I just kept going. And people around me were looking at this in absolute shock. Because in the military, you're praised for doing stuff like that. But in the real civilian world, that's obviously a big no. That's a no. That's not a good thing to do. So after that happened, my boss called me into my office and he said, "Hey, this is very inappropriate behavior. You know, you did this to this coworker of yours. He has to go home for the rest of the day. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to let you go." And at the time, I was just kind of in my own head, and I was thinking that I'm the victim and I didn't do anything wrong. But in hindsight, it's just yeah, it's a very inappropriate thing that I did. So my career was over with. My ex had left, and I got a pretty good severance package and had a lot saved up. So I was just kind of hanging out, going to my doctor's appointments every like once every couple, twice a week, so once every few days, seeing friends, kind of looking for new jobs and opportunities. But I was stuck in my old house with all these memories and all these things of this failed relationship. So after about 3 weeks of going to the conventional psychologist doctor guy I was seeing, I was like, I'm sick of this. I'm not going to be shoving a bunch of pills down my throat. Like I'm already having addiction issues as it is. So I got to research alternatives. So I was sitting on my laptop in my office and I was looking up alternative treatments for PTSD or PTSD alternatives. And I found an article on something called forest bathing, which is a Japanese practice called Shinrin Yoku, where you just turn off all the screens and just go take a walk in the woods. And it's like, all right, that seems cool. I'll try that out. So I went about 3.5 hours outside of town to the mountains and I got lost all day. And that's when I started realizing, all right, this is actually pretty nice. I can start to kind of unpack stuff and feel really calm, start to move my body more. I feel really good out here. I feel better than being in the city. And that was my first cue into starting alternative things. And it basically goes into a deeper story after that. But to answer your question, the path to alternatives was out of necessity because the conventional solution of prescribing me to SSRIs and anti-anxiety medicine, benzodiazepines for sleep, and a slew of other pharmaceutical drugs was just like shifting from one dealer to another, and you're still dependent on things, and that's not the route I wanted to go.
Wow. So what? Give me some of the lessons that you learned that maybe some of us don't really understand or we misunderstand about this level of pain and discomfort?
So, being in the military, you're psychologically conditioned to compartmentalize and disassociate with your emotions. And they do this intentionally because you need to be in a certain frame of mind to operate in a high stress environment where you're making life and death decisions. So, you don't have the space to be emotional when you have to practice clear judgment because lives are on the line. And it makes total sense for that environment. So when you're psychologically conditioned to have operated in that environment, and then it's reinforced by military culture, where you're constantly in this state of you have to perform, you have to be on your best. Death before dishonor, failure is worse. Like failing at something is a worse fate than death. There's constant shaming tactics. You get kind of in this normalized head state of being hyper detached from your emotions. And the only way you can reconnect with them, usually, is through physical intimacy. That's why guys that are military, they come out of the field, they're off deployment, and they hit the bar right away, or the dating apps, or brothels. I mean, they're known for that kind of stuff. Or through intense substances, like binge drinking, or violence. We get in fights just because we want to let out that anger. So we have limited ways we reconnect with ourselves when we're conditioned that way. And when you get out of the military, they don't tell you how to turn it off. They give you a 3-day class that's called TAPS, Transitions Assistance Program. And they basically say, this is how you get your GI Bill. This is where you can go to college. These are the opportunities. Here's the statistics on homeless veterans. Here's the statistics on drug addicted veterans. You're probably not going to make it out there. Are you sure you want to get out? Here's a paper. You can sign it. You can stay in because out there you're going to be a loser and you're not going to make anything of yourself. So you don't want to get out, do you? And then you have to sign a paper saying, no, I want to get out. And then the whole game they play, they kind of just do this thing to use these manipulative language tactics to make you feel bad about getting out. And then when you get out, you're stuck with this conditioning in a world that doesn't understand you. And you have a very hard time adjusting to normal life because you're in a situation where you're making life and death decisions on a regular basis. You have high levels of responsibility. You're an asset. You have a unit, you have a group, you have family, camaraderie, people that will literally die for you if it came down to it. And now you're just on your own in middle America somewhere or wherever you're from, around a bunch of people that have no idea what you went through, have no kind of way to relate to you. And they have no sensitivity to it. Cause like when I was in the military and just coming out, people would ask me, oh, did you ever kill somebody? What's that like? Like they think it's like a movie, but this is not a movie. It's real life. So it makes it hard for veterans to really kind of normalize themselves or adjust to normal life or whatever that means outside of the military. And there's not a lot of assistance in doing that.
It almost seems like they've created a process that's doomed for failure. You see people leave prison, and they have the same fears, but at least they're encouraged to make something of themselves. It sounds like when you leave the military, your experience of leaving the military was those types of fears being put in front of you with the intention of trying to get you to stay. Um,
Yeah.
it's
Well, you're an
discipline.
asset. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
they invest millions of dollars into training you.
Yeah.
And then if you have good eval, like before I got out, I got promoted to E5. I had really high test scores. I had a really good record. They wanted to keep an asset in. I mean, it's like an employee, right? If you're a business owner and you have a really good employee and he said he wants to quit, you want to keep him there because he
Right.
works for you. He's part of the organization. It's the same idea, really. I get it. But the problem in my experience is that the idea of unpacking and undoing the psychological conditioning was totally absent. Like it's not there. And even if things go sideways and you go to the VA, there's a chance you're going to be waiting 6 to 8 months for a mental health appointment. And when you get it, they're just going to shove pills down your throat anyway. Maybe if you're lucky and you go to like somewhere, maybe like Palo Alto, they have a good VA with all the California hippie kind of people that'll actually give you some real therapy in some places that are scattered across the states. But in general, it's just, all right, well, here's talk about all the things that make you feel horrible. Here's some pills, come back in 2 weeks. And that's pretty much what it is.
Wow. And for me, I think of PTSD. I almost as flashbacks and kind of nightmares. That's the
Mm.
definition of PTSD. But from your experience, there's a lot more to it that we don't see.
Yeah, it's just In my book, I relate this to the idea of fragmentation, where basically you have a traumatic experience that's completely shocking and jarring. And what happens is part of you is stuck in that experience. And whenever something happens again in real life that reminds you of that, when you have a trigger event,
Mm-hmm.
that broken part of you resurfaces to that same level of intensity as the original event because you haven't gone through the process of emotional healing. And so, what PTSD basically means is part of you is trapped in your past experiences and is living them on a regular basis.
Right.
And they're running an unconscious loop in your nervous system. And you try as much as you can to constantly disassociate from yourself. Like at the height of my PTSD, I would hate to be alone by myself in my own company. I can't stand it. Like, and if it came down to that, I would need to be inebriated on some kind of substance because being alone means I don't have anything to occupy my mind. So now all of those memories and emotions start to come back and say, hey, I want your attention. You need to process this, but I have no tools. I have no knowledge. I don't know what's going on. And then all of a sudden, it's 4 o'clock in the morning and I'm reliving some experience that I had 10, 15 years ago. Or if someone cut me off in traffic, I'm shouting at the top of my lungs, berating them,
Right.
wanting to threaten physical harm at them when they just cut me off. And people around are like, what the heck is wrong with you, man?
Right.
Or you can be in a situation where there's a loud noise. Like there was some fireworks that went off and I dropped and hit the deck just from hearing that noise.
Wow.
I dropped and hit the deck and people around me they're kind of like laughing, but like, what the fuck's wrong with this guy? What are you doing? Part of myself was stuck in those experiences and they resurface when events trigger that remind me of those things that I'm already feeling.
Tell me about the book.
Yeah, so the book is called Unfiltered Wisdom, and it's basically the catalog of the journey I went on when I decided to take matters into my own hands and find my own answers for myself. And I know there's a lot of people out there suffering from mental health issues and PTSD and all sorts of things, and we have a broken system. Because if you do have the resources to get an actual good therapist, like it's not accessible to everybody who needs it.
Right. Right.
If you don't have those resources and you lean into conventional systems, then you're going to be dependent on medications, which since some people need that. And it's good for some people, but it makes you constantly dependent on something outside of yourself. And as soon as those medications run out, which I've experienced also when you don't have them anymore, the withdrawal symptoms are exponentially worse than the original trauma. Getting off of SSRIs and benzodiazepines when you don't have them anymore, it's worse than what you experienced, right? So what I basically did is I found my own healing and I cataloged my journey and I extracted all the wisdom from it and I cataloged it in a book and I wrote a book about it with the aim to share that with people who want to find ways to heal themselves and move on and live a full life after trauma.
Right. Give me the title of that. Give me the title of that book again, Rob.
Unfiltered Wisdom, Raw and Honest Truths About Living with Trauma.
Okay. I know you're in Malaysia, but I'm assuming we can grab that right off of Amazon.
It's on my website. Right
Okay.
now, I'm giving it out for free. So if you go to my website, unfiltered-wisdom.com, then there's a section, the book, and you enter, register your email address, and you get a free digital copy. So
Good.
I don't want any barriers. So anybody who needs it, you're struggling financially, whatever the case would be, it's available.
Good. All right. We may talk about that off the air, but you're a very generous man. Good. Good. All right. So we know where to get it and we can get it for free. Great. That's the ebook version, correct?
Yeah.
Got it. All right. Let's climb into it a little bit. So you did martial arts and yoga and meditation, and it helped kind of shift things in your inner world. Walk me through that a little bit.
So I guess we can go through acts of this whole play, I guess. The first thing was totally just moving off grid. So getting in touch with nature, that whole idea of forest bathing, I took that to the extreme. I was about 2.5, 3 months in after my separation from my ex and my career went down the tubes. So I was talking to a friend of mine. He's like, hey, I have this property in the central Philippines. Like, you seem like you like nature a lot and you're kind of in a limbo right now. Like, why don't you just lease a property and go hang out there? Like, unplug and get out of the city and turn a new leaf. So I went down and visited the place and I thought about it for a couple of days. I'm like, yeah, what am I hanging on to this for? It's just empty house. I have 3 huge bedrooms and 2-car garage and all. It's just me and all these reminders of all the failures I did. So I decided to take him up on it. And I moved out to the central Philippines, the Visayas region, in a municipality called Aklan. the central part of the Philippines. And the property I leased was near a group of tribal people, or the native peoples of the Philippines, called the Atis, or the Aita. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but the native people of the Philippines, they look like they could be from Papua New Guinea. They're of that genetic makeup. They have dark skin, they have curly blonde. They look like they could be African. So they're completely dark. So they're not looking like Asian Filipinos. Those are all people that have came into the islands. And so living with them, it's a marginalized community. They live completely in nature, like in bamboo huts. Mm. Like they don't have cars or houses or anything like that. They mainly rely on agriculture, construction, fishing, and rice farming as their livelihood. And so moving out there as an outsider, they had a giant ATM sign on my forehead, and they don't like outsiders. Like they're not too friendly at all to outsiders that are trying to come be with them. They have this because they've been so bullied and socially marginalized that they're not welcoming to people who aren't in their tribe, right? So first thing I figured out is like, okay, how do I get these people to accept me? Like I need something to do out here. So we planned to build a sustainable eco village. I wanted to build an off-grid ecosystem where I can live out there and kind of have my own world. So I decided that I would hire them to build all my structures and build my property so I can give jobs to the local community. And in doing so, they started to warm up to me a bit because, okay, this is the foreigner with the money. He can give us jobs. Let's be nice to him. And after about a month of that, I was watching them work and I was seeing their kind of camaraderie and how they were doing things. So I was figured like, why don't I just join this and kind of just do it with them? So I went down to the local thrift shop where they all buy their clothes, and I bought some old t-shirt and an old pair of pants and some flip-flops and a machete. And I just turned up and I was like, hey, I want to work with you guys. Teach me how to do this stuff. So it took on the dynamic of being their employer and their trainee at the same time. Yeah. And I learned their ways. So they taught me how to build with bamboo, and I worked with them, and they work hard. Man. These guys are hardworking. Like we had to cut giant, really thick bamboo poles, then bring them up the hill barefooted, because they do everything barefoot or in sandals if they don't have to. So I got really thick calluses on my feet from being barefoot. And then we had to climb up, and when you're building with bamboo, they tie it together with fishing line. They don't use any nails. So when you have to climb up to, like we're building this giant tree house, we had to climb up the tree with no harnesses, nothing. Then tie the ropes together and put everything together. Then farming, there's no tractors. We did it all by hand. So I was out there full tilt, like an avatar, part of the tribes, man. I learned how to speak their language. And since I learned their ways, they kind of accepted me. And I became known in the community, and I got really close to them. And that experience really taught me. The lesson in that experience was that everything that we don't want to face, we cover up with something. And distractions are easily available in cities. You feel bad, you go do retail therapy, you go buy a new iPhone, you go see a movie, you go to the bar, you get on a dating app and meet somebody new. We're constantly full of distractions. We never get a chance to really sit with how we actually feel. So being isolated in the jungle where there's no sensory input, you get a lot of time to unpack things. And the second bit of wisdom I took from that is happiness is simply where desire, expectation, and preference meet reality.
Say that again.
Happiness is simply where desire, expectation, and preference meet reality. Yeah. And the reason I say that is because all of the things that we desire and we expect and we prefer, when we don't have them, what happens? We usually have an angry, disappointed, sad reaction to things. Right. When the things that we do prefer, we do desire, and we do expect happen, we feel happy. We're in a positive emotional state. So the framework of happiness is very simple. What we do is we set expectations, desires, and preferences, and then we kind of expect reality to meet that. And we kind of have this idea that reality should meet that. And if reality doesn't meet that, then something's wrong with reality, not me.
Right.
Because we blame things. Human beings do this. We blame things externally. We don't like to look inward. And so what I learned being out there, as I was thinking about this, like there was times I had this really, really nice house and I'd be at a nice dinner with my ex-fiance, and then we wouldn't even be present with each other. We're just sitting on the phone, like looking at social media, doing stuff, not even enjoying a dinner, but I'm with these people, and we have every night's a feast, celebrating a day, celebrating the fact that they get a full meal. So even I'd pay them their daily wages. They go down to the supermarket, we buy a bunch of fish, we get a bunch of coconut wine, a bunch of vegetables and fruits, and We'd have the cheap beers, and we'd sing karaoke, light a fire, play drums. We had such a sense of togetherness, but we had such simple things. So that was the whole lesson in that, is your happiness and the things that you think make you happy. If you map this out psychologically, it's simply the sum of your expectations, preferences, and desires weighed against your reality. When it's a net positive, you're happy. When it's a net negative, you're not. And that's all it really is.
Wow. Well, you've simplified it. How long did you spend with them?
2.5 years.
Wow. And do you ever go back?
I went back during the pandemic because I was still around there.
Right.
But since then, I haven't been back.
Okay.
But I'm planning to go back to the Philippines next year.
Good. All right. Last question for you. If someone's listening and is in that same place that you were in, of despair that you were in, what's the first thing you want them to know?
You have to really look at the situation around your despair. What is your emotional attachment to the situation? Why are you in despair? What is your expectation? What is your preference? What is your desire? What are the things around the way you're feeling? Are they in your immediate control? And where can you hold yourself accountable for your situations? Because a lot of the times we're victims of our own suffering, and we're victims of our own ignorance. We're victims of the choices that we make or we fail to make. And if it's something that is in our power to change, then we have to be able to step out of our own victimhood and look at, okay, this is in my control. I can take accountability. I can own this, and I can change this because I want to feel better.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, is if you actually want to feel better, like, it's not just because you want attention or you want sympathy. You say, I want to feel better and be in a better state of being. You have to be able to understand that it's your responsibility. And it might not be your fault, but it's your problem.
Right.
Like if a drunk driver crashes into my house and ruins my wall, no, it's not my fault, but it's my problem. Now I got a hole in my wall. I can't just sit there and say, oh, I can't do anything about this because someone else drove the car into my house. I'm just going to sit here and shiver in the cold as it comes in through my wall. I can't do anything. It's not your fault. No, but it's your problem. So you got to do something about it, because no one's going to make you happy and fix you but you.
Right.
No one cares enough. Maybe your parents, maybe, but at the end of the day, it's just you.
Right. Do you write a blog?
I post a lot on my LinkedIn. I'm starting a blog, but I do have a lot of content on my LinkedIn.
I'm just, there's so many small points that you're making that would make really good blog entries. The point you just made, for instance, to me is, as a guy who's written, I call it a blarticle for 16 years, every other week, 480 of them or whatever it is at this point. You just nibble at thoughts. And that's what I like about it. And, you hope people read them, but if not, just getting them out and getting them down and building a library of these thoughts. That's what that book did for you.
Yeah.
And one other thing you said, which is interesting, I saw a report one time about happiness. They really tried to define it scientifically. And they came up with a couple of criteria, but the number one criteria, Rob, was control. And they could prove this with 1-year-olds. They would show them pictures, and the 1-year-old would be happy. They'd be flashing by, and they actually gave them something so that they could move the pictures one by one, sort of a clicker. And a 1-year-old can basically learn that. When they took the clicker away, the child wasn't happy. But when they showed the pictures randomly, so they couldn't control the flow of the pictures, that really upset them much more. And so you could see that lack of control was more upsetting than just having whatever they liked removed. And when you see that at that young, you realize how innate that is, how just a part of our DNA is control. When we feel in control, we're happier. When that control is taken away, we're not as happy.
And the funny thing, even if you look at that psychologically, the person was in control. So their expectation, their preference and desire was to have control over what they're seeing.
Right.
Now they took it away. So now you don't have what you expect. You don't have what you prefer. You don't have what you desire. You get upset.
Yeah.
Even though you're experiencing the same thing, the pictures are moving on the screen. The fact that you're not in control when you prefer, desire, and expect to be is the root of the unhappiness. So it proves the equation stands valid in that situation as well.
Yeah. Well, it is, but it is amazing when you can see it validated in a 1-year-old. That to me, I never got that out of my head of wow, and it wasn't even close. They did it a few times. All right, give me that website again.
Unfiltered. It's www.unfiltered-wisdom.com.
Okay. And so you can get a copy of Rob's book right there, and you really should. And once you do, I'm gonna talk to Rob. We may get it now because I may convince Rob to take a different path with that. But you know what? When you get it, do the right thing. Go on to Amazon and write a review on this book. Let's get some information out. Can I get it on Amazon? Is it on Amazon?
Not yet, no.
Oh, all right. We can't write a review yet. All right. Well, it will be soon, folks. I can promise you that. Stay tuned. Listen, it was really a pleasure meeting you. I'm glad that I'm keeping him from his dinner. I mean, it's in the evening in Malaysia right now, but I'm really grateful to have had the conversation. As a son of a Marine, my dad was in the Marines for 25 years. So I heard that voice, by the way, a few times that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I know the voice. It is an honor to have spoken to you, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you.
I'm just grateful you were able to come on.
Thank you.
Well, you bet, Rob. Well, we'll do it again as well as we can, everybody, next time. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please rate and recommend it on iTunes, Outcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information on this show and Rob at jollis.com.